Hey y'all, it's Mary Hyatt, and I'm so excited you're here for this month's topic, which is all about body wisdom. Our bodies are full of magic and wisdom if we can tune in and listen. This month, we'll be exploring how to create a more intimate connection with the unique language of our bodies and use it as a tool for deeper healing. So stay right here and let's hop into it.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt, here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey everyone, it is Mary, and welcome to our new month with a new theme. We're talking all about body wisdom. And if you have been following the Living Fully Alive podcast for a while, you know that I love talking about the connection and the relationship that we have with our bodies, whether that is through the mind-body connection, whether that is through learning how to love and accept the skin that we are in. And this month, we're going to take this a little bit deeper, and we're really going to get into finding a way to come back into our body's innate wisdom. And we're going to look at this through a lot of different angles and have conversations, I think, that are really just powerful and maybe a little bit different than what you would think of when you think about the theme of body wisdom. So I can't wait to share those with you. I've got my part-time co-host, Lindsley Brooks, next week. We've got a fabulous guest speaker this month, and then I'll be wrapping it up at the end. And this is our foundational episode. This is the launching point to talk about body wisdom. And I want to make sure that you know this too, that this is the final month in the season 2 of this podcast. So I'm actually going to be taking a hiatus for July and August of 2021. And I'm going to come back in September with season number 3. It's so crazy to me that season 2 we'll have, by the time we end at the end of this month, we will have 90 episodes, which is really amazing. And we've had so many powerful themes over the course of, it's been over a year since we've had the season, I think about 2 years for season 2. So it's a good time, just as much as everything has changed, as much as I've changed, to just take a pause. And I'm going to really enjoy 2 months of resting and recalibrating and really thinking about this new season 3, and I'm excited to be back with you guys. But we've got a whole month together to wrap up this beautiful season 2, and I couldn't think of anything better to talk about than body wisdom. It is definitely a part of my own journey of learning how to really respect my body. Really respect its voice, how it communicates, learning how to trust it. And so today I'm going to first kind of start with this idea of how we got out of the alignment of what is an innate thing for us to be in relationship with our body and to trust its wisdom. And obviously that gets knocked off course, and so much of this journey of living fully alive is coming back home to our bodies, in particular, our body's wisdom. And so I think kind of the first reason that we get knocked out of alignment from our intuition, from our gut, from that knowing, from that mind-body connection is ultimately from programming that we receive not only as children, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment, but also even in our current climate and even as adults, especially for women. This is even more so if you think about all the messaging that we get around our bodies being against us, whether they're gaining weight or if they're getting sick. There's a lot of body bullying, body shaming, body messaging around there's something wrong with your body. There's something flawed with your body. But if we rewind, okay, I'm so glad I got to say that without totally butchering it. Rewind the clock a little bit and look at our childhood and thinking about messages that we had about our bodies. And when we lose that connection to that innate wisdom that we are all born with, we can, it takes us so off track. And we'll talk about kind of like how that shows up. But when we think about losing it, it's like, okay, where did that start? And from the get-go, like when we learn to eat solid food, it kind of starts there. Now, hang with me for a second, because this is sort of an intuitive eating principle. So when we're little and we're breastfeeding, we cry when we're hungry. Nobody's like questioning their hunger. Nobody is questioning their fullness. They are asking for what they need, oftentimes by crying. And they say, "Hey, I'm hungry," by our wails and our tears, and then we're fed. And we stop when we're full. It's just sort of an innate thing. We listen to our body, and we have this internal system that just knows when it's hungry and when it's full, but it's not from a place of conscious thought. Now, as we get into toddler age and we start eating solid foods, here is where we start to become disconnected from our body. And this is where our parents or caregivers self-impose their own beliefs around food to us. So this looks like either forcing us to eat, like you have to finish everything on your plate. I grew up in the clean plate club family, and there's a lot of like maybe shaming around, there are kids starving in Africa, you need to finish your meal, or there could be a guilt trip around, well, I slaved over this meal, you need to finish it. That's the polite, right thing to do. It could be more traumatic in that there was issues with food scarcity in the home. And so when there was food presented, then the child or yourself may have gobbled up, beyond its point of fullness, because there was this lack of food safety inside of the home. Like there's not enough food. And so when you got food, you ate above or beyond your fullness level. And so all of these things, or like, for example, having to try foods that you didn't like if your parent or caregiver forced you to eat things that you didn't want to eat. These are ways that we subconsciously reinforce that you can't listen to your body, or you don't want to trust your body. And that staying in this sort of societal norm, or whatever your culture was in your family, that was more important than listening to your body. So there wasn't a whole lot of education on, okay, baby, like stop when your tummy says stop, and I think that's maybe more prevalent now as we've started to understand the importance of intuitive eating and listening to the body cues, listening to our hunger and fullness. And it's so beautiful. I love that has become something that is more common. But when we're younger, we're receiving that subliminal kind of subconscious message that our bodies aren't to be listened to and they're not to be trusted. So it kind of starts with food. Then if you think about how we've lost it, another way is in the denial or the rejection of boundaries. I see this still today very often. So like, for example, if someone comes up to a child and they don't know them super well, maybe this adult wants to hug the child. Like they've been taught that connection is physical touch, and they want to hug the child. Maybe they want to give them a high five. Maybe they want to fist bump them or whatever it is. And the child, for whatever reason, may sense inside of themselves that they don't want to connect physically on that level. So they don't want to give a hug. Maybe they don't want to hold hands with an adult. Maybe they don't want to fist bump or high five or handshake. But the parent or caregiver says, no, go give them a hug. Be nice. They want a hug from you. Go give them a hug. Even if it's a grandparent, even if it's an aunt, uncle, even if it is somebody that they know, there's a lot of encouragement and honestly forcing of making children physically connect with adults that inside of their body, for whatever reason, it could be anxiousness, it could be maybe they're shy, they need some time to warm up, it could be a sensory issue, it could be all kinds of different things. But if the parent isn't tapped into that child's emotional and energetic state, they will oftentimes forcibly, not from a malicious place, but forcibly make the child connect and deny that child's energetic and emotional boundaries. So what that's being communicated, because children don't have the faculties to be able to really explain that to an adult, what that's teaching them is to deny that for themselves. They're denying that wisdom inside of their body that says this isn't a good vibe or I'm not ready, and they push through anyway. So we learn how to do this. And then the kind of third way this shows up is in the encouragement, this programming, in the encouragement of denying of our emotions. So I have led enough group coaching programs to know that so often the programming that we received as children, and again, I think this is slowly changing, which is great. But certainly for our generations, there was a lot of man up communication and language being used. Suck it up, dry your tears, get it together, get a hold of yourself, all those kinds of things. There was shame around emotions, meaning you were weak or fragile, especially for little boys. But there was a lot of conversation around denying your emotions. So again, whatever you were feeling, like really genuinely as a child, whether that was exhaustion, whether that was fear, whether that was anxiety, whether that was anger, there was a lot of unspoken or very overt ways where our adults in our lives were communicating that it was not okay to express ourselves emotionally. Oftentimes it was met with punishment, timeout, spanking, whatever. So there's a lot of programming going on that is basically saying disconnect from the body, whether that's emotionally, whether that is from a intuitive eating place, whether that is from how we relate in relationship with other people. And then one other thing that I think is important to mention is sort of the programming of you aren't the expert of your body, that a doctor or someone in the medical industry knows more about your body than you do. And we've sort of learned how to operate in life without tapping in and checking into our own physicality, our own sensations, our own body, what's going on inside of ourselves. And we advocate that to quote unquote experts, people that have gone to school, people that have degrees, people that know more than us. And we essentially hand over the rights of our body to experts. So we believe anything that anyone tells us. And again, this may be changing a little bit, but there's still a lot of this going on. There's not proper questioning. There's not the slowing down, checking in with our own physical bodies and going, okay, what's this about? Like, body, what's going on? Why are you showing this symptom? Why are you out of balance here? What are you trying to communicate to me? We haven't been taught those kinds of skills. And so we look externally for somebody to tell us what is wrong with our body. You know, it's fascinating when doctors tell their patients, oftentimes, I can't remember the exact rate, but it's really, really high, when they say like you're going to die on this date or in this range of dates, the next 2 weeks, in the next 3 months, in the next 8 months, the patient typically will die on the date or inside of that range. And I can't remember, I want to say it's like 80 or 90% of the time. That power of suggestion from somebody that holds authority and is considered an expert is really powerful because, again, that mind-body connection, if our brain believes it's true, our body is going to begin to mirror that. And so oftentimes, from a medical perspective, we have handed over the authority of our bodies to an expert, thinking that they have more authority than we do over our own bodies. And that is really problematic because it disconnects us from our own intuition, from our own wisdom, from our body. And then, so that's kind of the big idea of like programming, right? Like this is what we receive as children, the messages we get as children. But then another big category of when we kind of get off track and get misaligned and out of alignment with our bodies, it's from the messages that we've received from religion, Now, this is not across the board. This may not resonate with you, but oftentimes in more conservative religious practices and traditions, there is this concept that the body is evil. Like there's a lot of conversation around denying the flesh, like that your physical body is somehow sinful, would be the language, especially as women. It's like covering the body, the whole concept of modesty, the whole idea of the fact that we could bring a man to stumble. There is a lot of that conversation around our bodies being something that is of the world and not of the spirit. And so when that happens again, it's like we don't even look at our bodies as something that is precious, that is holy, that is to be revered, that has all this incredible intelligence on its own and wisdom inside of itself. There is a real encouragement of disconnecting, because the body, the flesh will lead you astray. Even the heart will lead you astray. And there was a huge emphasis on the intellect, on the mind, and denial of the body. So we're getting a lot of messaging that our body's wisdom is not to be trusted. And that's kind of what it boils down to. And then the last area where I see this disconnect happening is when we are living from a state of stress. So pretty much all of us after the past year and a half can very confidently say that we've been under extra stress than normal, and in many cases a lot of trauma that has happened over time. And so part of what can disconnect us from our body is when our bodies get stuck in survival mode. So when we are operating in a space where our nervous system is in that fight, flight, or freeze response, we have to disassociate ourselves from the body, because inside of the body is a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of fear. And so we want to escape those sensations. We want to escape the physicality of our being. We want to get outside of that pain internally. And so when we're stuck in survival mode, and we're constantly under huge amounts of stress, we're really denying everything that our body is telling us because we are trying to survive. Now, whether that is like a real threat, like we're running away from, somebody pointing a gun at us, or we're just in chronic stress of uncertainty like we have been, it shuts down our hunger and fullness cues and signals in our body. It slows our digestion. Everything basically goes to the extremities and the vital organs to be able to run out of physical danger. So when that happens, there's not a lot of focus on thinking about our body's wisdom, having the mental cognitive space to connect with our source, connect with spirit, connect on that higher level. We get stuck in a very reactive place, that lizard brain. And when we're in that place, obviously, we're not going to be able to hear our wisdom, because all we're hearing are the crazy thoughts inside of our head that are feeding on the fear, on the anxiety, on the stress. And it becomes that looping pattern, that happens. So Dr. Joe Dispenza says this about stress. He says, stress is one of the biggest causes of epigenetic change because it knocks your body out of balance. It comes in three forms: physical stress, trauma, chemical stress, toxins, and emotional stress, fear, worry, being overwhelmed, and so on. Each type can set off more than 1,400 chemical reactions and produce more than 30 hormones and neurotransmitters. When that chemical cascade of stress hormones is triggered, your mind influences your body through the autonomic nervous system, and you experience I was like about to finish the quote. I'm like, dang it cut off. So it experiences something. We don't know. But basically, in this state of being, when everything is firing at all cylinders, your adrenaline is pumping, your cortisol is being used, you're knocking out of whack your hormones, you're not sleeping well, all of that is going to knock you out of that balance, out of that homeostasis, out of that alignment with your body, and you disconnect from your body's wisdom. However, the reality is that our wisdom has always been here. It's not something that we have to create. It's not something that we have to fabricate. It's something that we get to come back to. Like, our body in its wholeness is operating from wisdom. It is a beautiful relationship that we have. And so I want to map out 3 ways that we can begin to honor our body's wisdom and come back home to that wisdom. So the first way is to rebuild self-trust. So again, because of all this programming, we've lost trust with that innate wisdom. We question it, we deny it, we just think that we don't even have it. And so we've got to repair that and rebuild that trust. And just like any trust that's been broken inside of any relationship, it takes time to rebuild that. And it's oftentimes like a lot of small little deposits over time that begin to add up, where you go, okay, I've got enough data, I've got enough proof here that I can count on this. I can count on this wisdom, that we're in relationship, that this is a relationship that is full of trust. But because trust has been broken, oftentimes we don't go there to our body. We don't really have that rapport. We don't have that history with our bodies. What we know is our body is not to be trusted. We don't listen to it for a myriad of reasons that we talked about, a few minutes ago. So sort of the first piece of rebuilding the self-trust is, firstly, we have to let go of the belief that our body is broken, that our body is flawed, or that our body is wrong. If we hold on to that belief on any level, whether it's like from a religious standpoint, from a medical standpoint, we can't have wholeness when we see this part of ourselves, our body, as broken. So we have to release that belief, and also the belief that our body is against us. I know that when I had a lot of autoimmune issues, I often felt like, and especially when I was carrying more weight than I am now in my body and I was living in a larger body, I really felt like my body had turned against me. Like I was like, it is not healthy. It is, way out of whack. And I was blaming my body. I was so frustrated and I wanted to beat my body into submission, and I wanted to make it, my bitch and get it to behave. And so I really saw my body as my enemy. And so I would bully it. I would shame it. I would be angry with it. I would be resentful of it. I'd be frustrated with it. And so I love this quote from Emily Francis. She's written several really beautiful books. I would highly recommend checking them out. One is called The Body Heals Itself. And she says, "You are already whole. Your body is full of magic and wisdom." You are already whole. Your body is full of magic and wisdom. Our bodies are so unbelievably intelligent. It blows my mind when I think about, and the more I learn about our neurology and this mind-body connection and how everything fits together and how everything works in harmony with one another, and our body's ability to heal itself, to regenerate new cells, our body's ability to literally reverse genetic DNA, our body's ability to heal a wound, to heal disease, to heal chronic issues. I mean, thankfully, because I've been in the world of holistic health for a really, really long time, over about 15 years now, the amount of stories that I have seen of people coming back into wholeness inside of their physical bodies is amazing to me. And it's given me a lot of trust with my body now, because it's like, if it can happen for her, it can happen for me. When I see people healing themselves of cancer and autoimmune disease, even for my own self, of healing my own body from that, it's like, oh my gosh, our body knows how to be perfect. Like, it is literally knit together. It was created in such a way that it is surviving and living without us having to tell it to do so. That it literally will bend to our will, that if we think it, it will be. It is just beautiful, the synergy inside of our cells and how everything is connected and working together. So starting from, if we're going to build trust, we have to, like, if we're thinking about building trust with another person, we have to know that person is whole. That person is capable of wholeness. Because without that, it's like, how do you restore trust if you think that person's bad? You can't. Like, you have to go, there's something inside of this person that is a good person, that is a whole person. That in their original state, in their essential self, they are good and perfect and whole. And to me, when we look at restoring relationship with our bodies and rebuilding this trust, we have to start from that place of wholeness and that belief that our body is already whole, and we need to just remember its perfection. The second piece to this in rebuilding the self-trust is to stop giving our power away to other people. So stop giving authority to others and really start to listen to our bodies. It's like, if we constantly are looking for somebody else's input from our bodies, how can we build trust with our bodies? We have to go inside and go inward and start listening to our body. And so we have to really become the authority of our health, of our emotional well-being, of ourselves. It starts there. It starts like owning and taking responsibility for our health, for everything that's happening on a physical level and mental and spiritual and emotional. What did I miss? Emotional, all the ways. So that's kind of the second piece. The third piece is that, then this is just helpful to rebuild trust, is to remember the times that your body has communicated with you where it was like sharing something with you and you heard it. And it was like so intuitive. It hit you out of nowhere, like times when you just felt led to take a certain supplement or take an oil or go see this doctor or get something checked out, or a time when your body said, don't go do this, or a time when your body said, I need a break, or whatever it might be. Think about and remember times when your body has communicated with you and you heard it and you honored it, and that there was some sort of positive experience based on listening to your body. So in this, what we want to do is we want to build in some data, some places where you start seeing the proof of your body speaking to you in a way that creates better vitality and health, and adding to that proof. I can think of so many times in my life where, like, I was like, ooh, this is feeling off. I feeling like I need some rosemary or some olive leaf, or that I need to stop and not work out today, or take this rest, or whatever it might be. And sure enough, whatever it was that I felt intuitively, and I wouldn't even know the reasons why. Like, it wouldn't be like, oh, I know the properties of rosemary or olive leaf or echinacea or zinc or whatever it would be. I just intuitively knew from my innate body wisdom, like, I'm drawn to this thing. And inevitably, it would be the thing that would take away my sore throat, or take away my strep throat, or bring my body back into balance. Or it could even just be like, I need to move. Like, if we think about somatic movement, getting into the body, and we're going to talk about this with our guest expert, but so many times where I'm like, I just got to move this energy out of my body. Like, that's what I need on a healing level more than anything else. I need to cry it out. I need to yell it out. I need to dance it out. I need to work it out, whatever it might be. Really learning to look back on my history and find those places where there was trust and there was a payoff from that. It was like my body spoke to me, I listened, and I was better because of it. And then sort of the fourth element of this is paying attention to the whisper. So our bodies are communicating to us very specifically. And it's so important when you're building trust, you want to catch the instances where your body's talking to you in subtle ways so that you validate it using its voice to talk to you. We'll talk about a little bit of this here in the next way. But in this case, it's like, you think about your body giving you these little warning signs, these little warning signals, these little whispers. And when we don't listen and when we deny the emotion that we're feeling, for example, or we deny some of the exhaustion that we're feeling and we just push through and go for it anyways, or we deny those little whispers of like, hey, maybe you need to go get this thing checked out. When we do that, the body has to get louder and louder and louder and louder until we finally listen to it like screaming. And at that point, when we're experiencing dis-ease, chronic issues, extreme pain, whatever it might be, acute situations, that's our body like really screaming at us saying, like, no longer can I wait. Like, you need to listen to me now. But there was a trail that happened before that of little whispers, little warning signs. And so the more that we can honor when we get those little twinges, those little gut hits, those little moments of intuition, really taking that cue and honoring it, that builds trust. It's like, I hear you. Okay, I hear you, body. I don't really know. This doesn't really make sense. It feels kind of irrational or overreactive or whatever, but I'm going to listen to you. And I think that is something that builds a lot of trust. And then sort of the last piece here of something that can help to rebuild the trust, and this is a practice. So this is something that you would do as part of your routine, and I like to do this at night, is to do the Hawaiian prayer, I'm going to try to say this without butchering it. Okay, I'm sorry if I do. The Ho'oponopono. Oh my goodness, y'all. It's like literally a bunch of O's and P's and O's and N's and O's and P's and O's and okay. So Ho'oponopono. I probably still messed that up. It's this beautiful Hawaiian prayer. It's so simple, but it has profound healing effects on the body. And it is, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I've done this practice. I often recommend this to my coaching clients, my one-on-one coaching clients, but I've done this practice myself where I'll place one hand on my heart and one hand on my belly. And I will, lying in bed, say this prayer until I feel a shift inside of myself. So I'll just repeat, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I might say that for 3 minutes straight until I feel that shift of like, again, rebuilding that trust. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I've been disconnected. I'm sorry I've abused you. I've bullied you. I've shamed you. I've judged you. I've ignored you. I've denied you. It's like all those ways that we've disconnected from our body's wisdom. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. That is a powerful exercise in prayer that you can start tonight, start today, and see what it's like to do 21 days of that, to do 30 days of that, and in what that does in creating a deeper trust and relationship with your body and its wisdom. So that is the first way to honor your body's wisdom, is to rebuild your trust. The second way to honor your body's wisdom is to learn its language. So Sarah Durgans says, our bodies will tell us if we are safe, stressed, or perceiving a threat long before our mind thinks it. So our body is always communicating to us through sensations. And this is so much of the work that I love to do, is learning how to pay attention to the subtleties of our body's communication. So sensations, again, are those little whispers inside of the body, little tweaks, little sensations of warmth or cool or tightening or tingling or pressure or heaviness or nausea, we can get a sense of my body's talking to me through sensations. So it doesn't audibly oftentimes say words, but I will share a practice that I do in learning how to communicate with our bodies, but learning how our body likes to talk to us. Learning its rhythm, its signs, its signals. And for me, it's like, once I kind of get into that, it becomes easier to notice it earlier on. And this is a skill set that you can develop over time, and you become more sensitive to the subtleties of your body's language. And so those sensations are going to be really key. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth of this because we're going to talk about it here in a couple weeks. But the second thing that you can do in learning this language is going straight to the body. So oftentimes when I have an ailment pop up, whether it is like right now I'm having this candida, what do you call it? I keep wanting to say like surge or, oh my gosh, flare up. There you go. Candida flare up. And I'm like, okay, my body is talking to me. There's something going on. Obviously, I'm out of balance in some way, and something is knocking it out of balance, something I believe, first and foremost, that can bring it back into balance. And I want to go straight to the source and straight to my body and have that conversation. So oftentimes when I have a presenting symptom, pain, sickness, whatever, I go and ask my body, like, body, what are you trying to communicate? And I do this through journaling. So I will literally, and again, this is after rebuilding some trust. So I've kind of worked with, okay, my body, it can talk to me. I hear it, I validate it, all of those things. So when I do this journal, it's great because I can actually like write out, and I usually do this, with my right hand first. So my conscious mind will write with my right hand. So it'll say like, body, like, I know you're hurting. I really hear you. I'm really sorry you're experiencing whatever, XYZ. I'd love to hear from you. What are you trying to tell me? And then I'll just sit with it for a moment. And then I will take my left hand, my non-dominant hand, and this is a great way to access your subconscious, is using your non-dominant hand. And just feel from a place of intuition. You can't get it wrong. You can't screw this up. There's no way of doing it incorrectly. So you have to leave perfection out and just sort of literally like let whatever wants to come up, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it feels like all over the place. Let your non-dominant hand respond. And I tell you what, it's one of the most powerful exercises that I've done. I've done this for probably over a decade, where anytime I have something come up, I journal out. What's going on here? What is my body trying to communicate? And I'm taking that time to slow down. And this is a self-work of journaling. And I'll take my non-dominant hand and hear what it has to say. And it's always profound. And I always hit on like, oh my gosh. Okay. And I trust my body. Like it might be something like that doesn't feel related, but it's like, that's enough to know that emotionally it's whacking out my body. It's bumping it out of balance. And I can trust that. And so then I can go address the cause, the emotional issue, the generational issue, things I need to let go, things I need to release, old beliefs, old patterns. Oftentimes all of that is knocking us out of it. It could be the stress response. It could be a fear. It could be an anxiety. This past year, it's been a lot of fear. I'm afraid I'm not safe. I'm afraid I'm going to be abandoned. It could be related to our core wounds. And so when we slow down and really ask the body what's going on here, man, that's so powerful. So I encourage you to ask your body. Oftentimes my coach, I'll say, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with, blah, 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 ailment or whatever. And she'll like pause and she'll go, well, have you asked your body yet? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I've been trying to like troubleshoot from my conscious brain. And all I need to do is really slow down and go into my body's wisdom. My body has the answers. And so this is another part of this that is a journaling exercise, but you can ask yourself 3 questions. Okay. When you're working on learning your body's language, you can ask yourself these 3 questions. And this could be something you do every day as a practice. If you're cultivating this, it could be something that you do once a week, or just in the moment when you kind of notice something going on. But the first question is, how is my body feeling today? How is my body feeling today? The second question is, what sensations am I noticing in my body right now and where? Where am I feeling in my body? What sensations do I have? Tension, tightness, heaviness, nausea, prickling feeling, sweaty, cold, hot, tingling, dizziness. Like, what sensations am I feeling? Usually we're so in our mind and disconnected from our body, we don't know that in each and every moment we're experiencing a sensational life inside of our bodies. So how is my body feeling today? And then what sensations am I noticing right now and where? And then lastly, if this area could speak, what would it say right now? If this area could speak right now, what would it say? So it's like, oh, I'm feeling this nausea in my belly. Oh, okay. Let me focus on that for a minute. What does that nausea want to say? What does that tension in my shoulders have to say? What does that lump in my throat have to say? What does that heaviness in my chest have to say? And that's where we get a lot of information where our trauma resides, our fear resides, our anxiety resides, our stress resides. And it's like, oh, in that moment, we can bring in so much loving, so much compassion, so much tenderness, forgiveness, whatever it might be. But we have to learn the language so that we can communicate, and the body communicates through those sensations. Again, we're going to talk about this more with our guest expert coming up in a couple weeks. But the last way and the third way to honor our body's wisdom is to respect its limits. So your body is going to be constantly analyzing its environment to notice if the area is safe for yourself. It's going to be checking in on the foods that you're eating, your stress level, the information that you're consuming through social media, the news, whether or not you're in a survival response, if your cortisol is jacked up, if your digestion slows, if your hormones are knocked out, if your immune system is suppressed, if you're experiencing a lot of anxiety, if there's a dis-ease in your body, it's constantly checking from all these different information points. Is it safe or not? Is it safe to rest? Is it safe to move forward? Is it safe to take a risk? Is it safe to sleep? All these different things. So when our body gives us a message that there is something happening inside of our environment that is threatening us in some way, where it doesn't feel safe, we have to really honor that and not push it beyond its limits, and really respect when our body is saying no. Just like, again, in any kind of relationship, we want to respect that no and start to be able to feel and sense in our bodies when we're feeling that internal no and when we're feeling that internal yes. Like, our body is our compass. And so oftentimes, like for me, if I'm thinking about taking on a new project or taking on a new client or having an opportunity to speak at something, or even just like in my home life, like whether to buy a house or whether to buy a car or purchase this food or eat this food today, my body will always give me that answer, yes or no. And it's important to start to understand what your body's yes or no is. How do you know inside that that feels like a no? That gut hit, that intuitive hit, that inner ding of like, ooh, that's not right. Like, that's a no. I don't want to move forward. Maybe it's a hell no. There's like a range of our no's and of our yeses. So it's really important to think about, like, okay, how do I know when my body is telling me no? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And I love this quote from Chris Franken, who has written a book called The Call of Intuition. And she says, you'll know that you're aligned with the truth of your deepest wisdom when your body feels light and expansive. You'll know when something isn't right for you because you'll feel constricted, awkward, fidgety, tense, or edgy. So respecting our limits, respecting our no's, respecting our internal boundaries, respecting that wisdom that says, do not move forward. Do not say yes to this thing. Do not agree to this thing. The more that we can respect that on the front end, the less suffering we're going to experience. So much of suffering is when we've really violated and gone against that internal wisdom and done things that we just knew weren't quite right, or we knew we sort of had a reservation about, and we just moved forward anyways because we felt social pressure. We felt the need to hurry up. We were living in a sense of scarcity or fear. And we said yes, or we agreed to something, or we committed to something, even though inside of ourselves there was a no. So we want to get better at respecting our body's limits and really honoring its wisdom. So those are the three ways to honor your body's wisdom, to rebuild that self-trust, to learn your body's language, and to respect its limits. So I know this was kind of a lot. I threw out like several options out at you. And this is not something you're going to do on a weekend. This is not going to something you're going to just like finish and complete and check it off the list. Just like any relationship, you're building and cultivating the intimacy with your body over time. This is something that I've been working on for, like I said, 15 years of learning my body's communication style, learning to check out those warning signals before they have to go to screams. And it's not a perfect situation. There's still times when I get overwhelmed and exhausted and I violate my wisdom and I break trust and I say yes when I need to say no. And I end up, just having a meltdown because I've overcommitted. It's like, yeah, that happens. There's still times when my body feeds on stress, and because of all the trauma, it gets totally out of whack. It's like, again, the candida I'm experiencing right now. It's like, ooh, that is telling me something. I'm out of balance. And so now I can reinvest in that relationship with my body's wisdom and work on my own healing, coming back to my body, remembering how to be perfect. But the process is a process, just like anything else. It's messy. It takes time, but just having this awareness that our body has wisdom, that it's full of magic. I mean, to me, that's a great starting place. So I will leave it there. I am so excited to be with y'all next week with Lindsley. We're going to get into all kinds of fun stuff. But until then, remember that the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. I'll see y'all next week. Bye. Hey y'all, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.